Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin is heating up again after Paramount teased a live-action adaptation with key first appearances you don't want to miss.
Alan Moore, an award-winning cover, and yes, the infamous Swampy and Abby moment.
And a Bronze Age sleeper with early Quasar action and John Byrne artwork, still super affordable and high grade. Find out about all this and more on this week's episode of BronzeAndModernGods.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah. Richard, I'm going to breaking news right here before we start. We had to replace the rug underneath the desks because one of the cats was mad that we left. Say no more. But look, the CGC box that's been there for 5 years is gone.
You actually emptied it out?
I emptied it out. I threw it away. That's one box gone. That box has got to go next. But you guys have been waiting 5 years for that box to disappear from the background. It has finally happened. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at BronzeAndModernGods for more exciting stuff like this. Richard, you went to Detroit.
Yeah, had a great time. Every year, the Woodward cruise, where you get people bringing their collector cars, their fancy cars, and they drive down Woodward Avenue, which is about 4 or 5 miles worth of road. And there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that line this road. They bring their chairs, they bring a tent, and they just watch the cars cruise back and forth. And then there's car shows here and there. I've never gone before. I live in Ohio. It's literally 3 hours away. So I decided this year I was going to go. Ran into our good friend, Kevin from Kmore Comics. Thank you, Kevin. This is one of his shirts. And Kevin lives there, and he was nice enough to take me on the actual cruise. We got in his car and we drove up and down Woodward Avenue, and it was a great time. Learned a lot of history about the whole area, because I wonder if California or the Detroit area is more car crazy, because I swear there's more. I saw more Corvettes. I saw more Ferraris and Lamborghinis than I've ever seen anywhere else outside of California here this past weekend.
Well, we're a car culture, but that's where cars were built. So I can imagine. Did you see any comic book stores while you were there?
Yes, Kevin took me to one store. Unfortunately, I do not remember the name of it. It was a very nice combination game and comic store, which I think was what comic book stores kind of do now to survive. You sell some magic cards and sell some comics. It was a very nice store, but we didn't stay very long because I needed to get back to get my T-shirts.
Yes, okay. Well, at one of those stores, or that store you went to, maybe you saw the hot book of the week. This is all you. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody about it?
Yeah, the hot book this week is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin, #1. IDW put this out. This was a great story. Kind of a gritty, hard-edged version of the Turtles. It's the first appearance of Oroku Hiroto, the grandson of the Shredder. You've got Casey Marie Jones, the daughter of Casey and April. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles co-creators Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird revisited an outline written back in 1987 about the lone survivor of the 4 turtles set 30 years in the future.
We won't spoil who it is.
No, and that's the cool part, because they all look exactly alike, and except for their bandana or their weapons, it's hard to tell them apart. Well, this guy wields all the weapons, and you really don't find out till later. #1 is about 130,000 copies in print. There are some rare copies. I'm going to get to my show and tell. I'm going to show one that's a little more rare. It's an oversized book. It's really annoying. It doesn't fit in a regular comic book bag. I have to put it in a magazine bag, but it's not as big as a magazine. It's really
weird in-betweener kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're wondering why this is a hot book again, because Paramount has mentioned plans yet again to develop a live-action adaptation. Boy, is it going to be practical effects or CGI?
That's a good question. I would love to see it. Everyone has, the Cowabunga version of the Turtles in their head. That's what is the mainstream version of the Turtles. This is something different. This is a dark revenge kind of story, and you get this lone turtle who's, the ghosts of his three brothers are with him, and it's a much darker, much more mature kind of turtle story.
Well, Richard teased it, so why don't we head right over to show and tell? What do you say? No theme, just random acts of violence.
Okay, same here, pretty much.
Giant-sized Spider-Man and Master of Kung Fu. Wow, it's webs versus martial arts. Sure.
Webs versus feet.
Killed Kane. He's got a poor Spidey taking it right in the solar plexus from a barefoot pajama-clad Shang-Chi. I know it's a key, everybody, but they used to tease him to say he wore pajamas. Kind of a team-up book, Giant-Sized Spider-Man, when it was out. They launched it, and every 4th month, Marvel team-up would not feature Spider-Man because this was out on a quarterly basis. And so they would have the Human Torch teaming up with someone in Marvel team up on the months this was out. So if you ever go look through those old Marvel team ups around 1975, you'll see a lot of Human Torch team ups, like Human Torch and the Son of Satan and Human Torch and the Hulk. That's why, because this was out that month. And you featured the Punisher and Man-Thing, just all sorts of weird team-ups. Dracula in the first issue. So there wasn't a trend Giant-Sized Spider-Man could not jump on. Or Kung Fu.
I see the corner box is kind of on both sides there. That's interesting. You got Spidey on that side, and
you got over there. Nice copy. Obviously, 68 pages. The lead story is not a full 68 pages. It reprints the new story from Spider-Man Annual number 3, where he fights the Hulk, and it's a test from the Avengers who are hazing him. They're like, if you want to join the Avengers, why don't you go capture the Hulk and we'll let you in.
Just capture the Hulk. That's all.
What do you got?
Okay, we talked about the Last Ronin. Here is the Last Ronin. This is my favorite version. Okay, this is a magazine-sized bag and board. And you see the extra room over here.
Mm-hmm.
It is just a little too big to fit into a regular board. I believe I tried to fit it into a Golden Age one, and it still wouldn't fit. It's a square-bound book, which doesn't help at all either. But this one is
format that Distillery uses.
Yes, I could not think of the name of the publisher yet. Distillery.
No, thank you. Pass.
So this is Ronin number 1. This is obviously an Albedo 2 homage to the first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo. This one has a small print run, and it actually goes for some decent money. At least it did back in the day. I don't know what the going price on this one is now. There's another variant where it's like a dystopian background instead of the big yellow area. There are a lot of different variant covers for this book. I think IDW wanted to cash in on the interest in the Turtles as much as they possibly could, because I showed last week or week before, I showed another variant of this one. But this one is my favorite, and like I said, it's worth a little penny.
130,000 copies. Oof, oof, oof. Not of that variant, just of that book. So not a rare book, everybody. You read this, I believe, DNA Agents?
Yes.
This is the new DNA Agents number 9. This is when the second series of DNA Agents, when they relaunched it, and it's got Dan Spiegel in here. I don't know who did this cover. I thought it was Steve Lytle at first. It's signed, but I can't see that. Mitch Schauer and Dennis Jensen, but boy, it looks like a Steve Lytle cover, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm just surprised that DNA Agents was popular enough to have a second go at the Golden Ring.
Well, I think what happened was it was doing well, but it was 175 or 150, and then Eclipse did this line of 95-cent comics, which were, I think, fewer pages, and they tried to do a go of it in this format, and it went for a little bit. I just remember, I don't have it. I should have pulled one of those. Eric Larson was the regular artist on D&D Agents when he was starting out. So there is your Eric Larson mention of the week.
Everybody drink.
If you were waiting for that, what do you got?
Sorry.
Well, besides the consumption.
I was looking through my collection, and I'm not even sure where this book came from. It's called Patriot, Desert Storm Journal.
Is that Don Lomax?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll tell you a little bit about this.
Oh no, this is it's black and white. If you look at it, this is kind of propaganda. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's black and white art inside, and it's kind of comicsy in terms of the quality. But like I said, it definitely skews in favor of the Americans in Desert Storm.
Well, what does it say by Don Lomax, author of underneath there? Vietnam Journal. That was a book he did for Apple. He did these war titles, and this was during, you guessed it, Desert Storm, and that's a Patriot cruise missile.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's Patriot. And you say propaganda, I say promoting the right side as a Desert Storm vet.
Yes, I could definitely see that. It's just there's some use of let's say racial epithets in here that I think.
Well, yeah. If there's one thing I can tell you about the Army is that we were very PC and never did anything like that.
It's definitely something you need to read. Like a lot of comics, you want to read them in the context of their time. Mm-hmm. And I remember 9/11, and I remember the mood and the overall attitude back then. It's not saying it's right or not. It's just what it was at the time. So,
well, luckily we're in a time where nationalism is at an all-time low.
Oh yes.
Moving on. I found this, and it's very cool. It's a little preview of the Ultraverse's Godwill that was in Wizard magazine from Malibu and the Ultraverse. And there is mantra on the front. Mantra. I think it's mantra. Yeah. And I think that's supposed to be Prime being split in two there. Not sure. But then you have Lord Pumpkin on the back. And you never did the Ultraverse, did you?
Not at all.
This is when I had already left the Ultraverse at this point. This is a 95. I think everybody else had too. That's why they were trying to do this crossover and get people excited.
Prime was part of the Ultraverse, right?
There he is. See the big P on the chest there. Again, stuff that will probably never ever be reprinted or revived. Never say never. But there are copyright issues and ownership issues. Even though Marvel bought them, the creators had some stake in there in them, and to do payouts and royalties, I think is just way too difficult. We've never gotten the full story as to why the Ultraverse can't be revived. There must be someone that they do not want to pay that's involved. That's the only thing I can figure out. For a company to buy an IP and then just never do anything with it is crazy. What do you got?
Yeah, not just like making a movie about Batgirl.
And it's a tax write-off.
Yeah. Last one. This is funny. Secret Wars #9 from the 2015 Secret Wars series. Yep. And you've got Deadpool here, and he's opening the door, and there's the Beyonder, and he goes, "No way, anything but that." And
it's Fred Hembeck, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. His signature there is in the bottom.
I'm looking at the knees. I'm looking at the squirrely circles in the knees.
Yeah, yep, definitely his art very, very, very recognizable. I thought it was funny just because this is Secret Wars. This is a pretty serious limited series, and to put him on the cover is I think pretty interesting.
I thought I've seen every variant for this series, and this is the first time I've seen that one. So congratulations. Let's give it up for the Beyonder's disco jumpsuit and his mullet, everyone.
Yes.
In memory of Jim Shooter. Hey, support the show. you can be a member here. We're back. I'm back home. We'll have our members only live stream this Thursday, which you can only see if you are a member. It's 90 minutes of rollicking fun, live chat, guest members coming on showing their books during a special extended show and tell. Like we said, 90 minutes plus sometimes. Way beyond 90 minutes sometimes. And you get to see your name zoom by here as we give you a shout out. And we were able to pay for StreamYard. It pays for our time that we have to take to do this. Believe it or not, there is some research and prep involved with all this. There's software costs, there's equipment. Hey, you don't care, but it's $2.99 a month if you want to help support us. Just hit join next to the subscribe button here on YouTube, or hit the link in the description as we move to viewer mail.
You've got mail.
Richard, I'm going to start this week.
Okay.
Glenn Simpson. How are you, Glenn? Hey, guys, I have a question. So as you know, sometimes non-graded, non-key comics get sold on eBay individually and at other times in runs. So someone might sell a Darkhawk #2 individually, or someone might sell a Darkhawk 1 through 20 as a lot. I use the CLZ cover price combination, and one thing I recently came to understand is that their algorithm can't pull in the sales data unless the sale is only for an individual issue. So if someone sells that Darkhawk #2 for $5, then that info gets used. But the fact that someone else sold issues 1 through 20 for $15 gets ignored, even though that would imply that #2 might not really be worth $5. With that in mind, for someone like me who has a lot of comics, what sort of rule of thumb do you think I should apply when evaluating the value of these books? Something like, if it's more than X years old and still only showing as X amount of dollars, it's really just a $1 book, or all non-keys later than year here are $1 books. May your tape never get caught in a book again. Thank you, Glenn at Glenn Simpson Comics here on YouTube. Glenn, I think you answered your own question. If it's a run filler, it depends. A run filler for Spider-Man ASM, like 148, is going to be a $20 book. Then a run filler for, let's say, Master of Kung Fu, since we're in that area, might be a $3 book. I think now we're at the point, we're the age where we're so used to books from the 70s and 80s of being what we call dollar books. I don't think any book from the 70s or 80s, if it's high grade, should be a $1 book at this point.
Right. I agree.
They're 40 and 50 years old at this point, right?
Right. I think anything from the 90s forward, unless it's a key or even a minor key, should be dollar fodder. I mean, it's if it's a filler, it's going to not be rare. The quality of the paper typically means the book is going to be a higher grade than a book from the 70s that's on newsprint. So yeah, I think those books should be inexpensive. Now that doesn't mean that there are exceptions to the rule, as we've seen for a number of books that we thought were just dollar bin fodder, and like, Spider Girl, and all of a sudden it just, goes crazy. You never know sometimes with speculation, but for the most part, I think dollar bin books, this should be counted as.
I think if it's a non-key book from the 90s forward, like Richard's saying, it's a buck, if that. If you can get $5 for a Darkhawk #2, God bless you. You should be able to sell ice to an Eskimo. What is your first piece of viewer mail?
My first piece is from our buddy Star Trek Stu. Hey. And Star Trek Stu says, fun show as always. Thank you. Another idea for a show is a Where Are They Now? Go back through the underrated or hot books of the week from years ago and see if they turned into anything of value. A review of John's and Richard's past spec books would be also fun. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool idea. I mean, we have not enough of an archive now that we can literally go back 5 years and talk about books that were just coming up and were hot then. Are they still hot today?
The 5-year rule.
No, 5 years ago was the beginning of COVID. And, it was a different environment, and books were priced differently than they are now. And, it'd be interesting to see of those books, which ones have retained their values and which ones have not.
Stu is one of many people who commented on you showing your failed spec last week and wondering if we could do more failed spec. I'm
Well, I got
down with
that.
Yeah, I'm down with maybe once a month we'll just go through and show some failed spec from the last few years. One thing I showed last week was a copy of Spoof number 3 and 4, which was the parody comic that Marvel had in the early 70s. And Charlie Dog Down Under says Spoof and the Color Crazy are so early Bronze Age, but short runs and reasonable prices make it easy to get them all. Coincidentally, I watched Blackula for the first time in 40 years last week. And it still entertains despite some cringeworthy stereotypes. The sudden termination of Stern and Byrne on Captain America left me very surprised. We talked about that last week as well. I thought they were doing great things with the title, and in fact, they were the reason I started buying Cap again. Charlie Dog, I cannot tell you, as someone who bought every single issue of Captain America since 1973, the period post Kirby to Stern and Byrne coming on was rough. Besides Roger McKenzie and Sal Buscema having a little run there, and it was fill-in after fill-in after fill-in, new creative team here and there. Steve Gerber's aborted run. It was just a breath of fresh air to have someone care about the book again instead of just trying to get it out on the newsstand in time, and to have that pulled out from under us was just, as a Cap fan, was just heartbreaking. But the good news is we got DeMatteis and Zek after that, Mike Zek on the book. So it all was not lost. What do you got next?
My next piece of viewer mail is from buddy Hank Wagner.
Hank.
And he says, and because I'm a pendant and can't help myself, I feel compelled to mention that I think they printed 3,000 copies of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 first printing. I had said 2,000, and he is right. Hank is right. They did print 3,000. I mixed it up with the Albedo 2 run, which was a 2,000 print run. So thank you for the correction. It was 3,000 for the first print. Still hard to come by. You know, those books go for twice as much as the second print and 6 times as much as the third.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to see Hank on our show and tell on our members only episode, he'll be joining us on August 28th. Plug. All right, back to Spoof. Kid A, who I hope is a reference to Radiohead Kid A, says Spoof number 3 is the first appearance of Michael Jackson in comics, because the Jackson 5 are on the cover and on an interior story that makes fun of the Partridge Family. I had not thought about that. Does it matter now with all the issues around Michael Jackson?
Yeah, it's an interesting data point.
Yeah, Michael Jackson and the writer of Mantra should get together.
Yeah.
Don't get together, you guys. No, don't. No. What is your next piece of your mail?
My last piece of viewer mail is from Expert Baby 454, and he asks the interesting question: is SRP, silicone release paper, just parchment paper for baking? So this is for those who don't know. You use when you're creating your stack of cardboard for your press, you always put silicone release paper or parchment paper, some people use, between the book and the heat source, because you don't want the cover of the book to transfer onto the paper that you're using to create your stack. So you put silicone release paper, it doesn't transfer, and it protects your book. Now, here's a question for you, John. I have used a variety of different things. I have used silicone release paper. I get it in a stack. It's white. It's got one shiny side and another side that's not so shiny. That's what I use. But I've also seen people use parchment paper, which is, an off-white kind of paper. Sometimes, I tried that early on when I was pressing, and I noticed there was a transfer of the pattern from the paper onto the book. Why don't you talk about it? You do it.
You can roll the dice if you want. I would always use SRP paper. I would never use parchment paper, and especially I would never use Teflon, which really leaves a nice little waffle pattern on the front cover of your book. It's called canvassing, if you ever see that in the CGC notes. Parchment paper is not as durable as SRP, and it's not as wrinkle free. You can also, it also gets look at parchment paper when you bake cookies. It gets scorched, guys. So I don't know why you wouldn't just use SRP paper if it's a cost issue. I use neither now with the new method, by the way.
Oh, really? So you have cardboard against the cover of your book?
It is copy paper, plain old copy paper between the cover and the top aluminum plate, because I'm now using aluminum plates with I'm going to have to do a new pressing video. That one I have now up there, which has like 100K views, it's outdated, kind of like the spec books that we had at the same time that was made. So yeah, SRP paper, if you're still doing it method 1.0, use SRP paper, please. Exactly.
Yes. No Teflon, please. If you take anything away from this, do not use Teflon.
Absolutely not. Speaking of outdated, that's us. We're outdated. We're old. We're old farts. It's the old fart rule. Going back 40 years to 1985, I remember reading this book. I remember buying this book, Richard. It is Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing number 34, 1985. You've got Stephen Bissette, John Totleben, Alan Moore. This cover won the best cover at the 1985 Kirby Awards. It's one of the most memorable images of the era pre-Vertigo. DC had dropped the Comics Code seal on this book a few issues before this, signaling a move toward mature, unrestricted storytelling for Alan Moore. Pretty soon it would be off the newsstands completely and be direct sales only. This is part of Alan Moore's celebrated run. This issue continued his groundbreaking reimagining of the Swamp Thing, helping redefine horror comics. But most importantly, this is why you want to buy this book. This is the issue where Swamp Thing and Abby did it.
Yeah. I remember when this book came out. It was a lot of press around it. This whole series, this whole run, the Swamp Thing, was just amazing. Totlebin's art was so recognizable. It was just on the edge of creepy, so that some of the things that he drew was just stuff and nightmares. But it was in a good way. I mean, it really helped set the tone for the art direction of the book, because it is a little bit of a dark story, and I really enjoyed the run.
Bissette and Totleben, I mean, their art looked like wood cuttings, wood engravings. It was just so detailed and so beautifully done. I'd love to see original pages. It's just got to look just gorgeous. Now, I'm joking, sort of joking about Abby and Swamp Thing, Alec, whatever you want to call him, doing it. She tastes one of his tubers.
Yes.
She goes on a trip. Let's just say that.
He was Alex, though, at this point, though, right? I mean, he was Swamp Thing.
Yeah, but she called him Alex still. I think, just call me Alec, whatever. Hey, if you want a copy of Swamp Thing 34, this is a run filler that is not $1 book. It'll run you about 10 to 12 bucks in high grade on eBay. So if you have never experienced the Alan Moore run of Swamp Thing from issue, you can start with 19. But if you start with 20, you'll be okay. 20 till Rick Veitch comes on I think it's in the 50s. It's just a really great sustained run of comics.
He's just, some of my favorite stories in comics are Alan Moore's based stories. So I have a warm spot in my heart for this series and all of his work. I guess he's difficult to work with.
You cannot let an Alan Moore mention go by without saying that. Alan Moore knows the score for you PWEI fans out there. By the way, since we're talking about music, I've always wanted to start the show with a recommended song of the week. Should I start doing that? Or
Sure.
Do people care? I've heard Ice House, No Promises this week.
Okay.
Do you remember that song? From 85. Oh man, what a great song. Basically it's a Roxy Music riff, just ripping off Roxy Music. But Ice House, No Promises, song of the week. As we move to our underrated books of the week, Richard, this was one of those indies I would see all the time and wonder, how is this surviving in this marketplace?
I know this. Okay, my choice this week is Knights of the Dinner Table, #1. This is such a unique kind of comic. It's the issue #1. If you were to find it, is a $400 or $500 book. It's
Wow.
pretty rare because there's only 3,000 in the print run, and I did verify that on the Kenzico website. It's really cool. This is a facsimile version. They call it a legacy print. It's just a facsimile of issue 1, and it's really an interesting story. It started off as a filler for the magazine called Shaddus, which is a science fiction, science fantasy magazine, fanzine kind of thing. He had an empty page and he needed something to fill it, so he drew this strip about this group of gamers. By gamers, I don't mean like computer gamers. I'm talking about RPG, Dungeons and Dragons kind of gamers, and there are different personalities, and it took off. People really liked it to the point where he actually turned it into a comic. And he's got this interesting art style because he is not classically trained as an artist. So he would draw characters and then he would paste the drawings into each of the individual frames of the book. So you would see the same figures for the characters as you're looking at the story. But if you've ever been a gamer, if you've ever been a Dungeon and Dragon, if you've ever been in that environment, you'll recognize all the different characters that are a part of the story. And he builds this whole world around these people and their lives. And it's not nothing super heroic or anything like that. It's just normal people who are living their lives, and they are obsessed about the gaming and the gaming culture. Just really, really, if you've been there, you'll laugh out loud as you're reading it. Very, very relatable horror, humor in the whole thing. It's won a number of Origins Awards. I always see, this is one of those books that's been out forever, since the since the 90s. Still in print. Issue 319 is out, which I'm with John. I don't know how this book, which is a black and white book, and again, the art is simply, most of it, not all of it, is pasting individual characters that have been used before into this book with word bubbles as they're talking about a story. How it survived this in issue 319 has 100 pages.
Has Blackburn drawn every issue?
Good question. I don't know. Every issue I've seen has been his art.
Because he's past Dave Sim, if so,
Mhm.
for a consecutive run. And Eric Larson has a lot of catching up to do for Savage Dragon.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's really a niche book. If it's one of those books. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, the jokes are going to kind of fall flat, especially when they come around Dungeons and Dragons and some of the things about Dungeons and Dragons. It's really funny. Also, there is a game that they're playing. They don't play Dungeons and Dragons because that's obviously trademarked. They play this game called Hackmaster, which obviously is just Dungeons and Dragons. And it's a hardcore versions of Dungeons and Dragons, and their world revolves around the releases of different expansions and all that stuff for Hackmaster. Well, they published Hackmaster as a game, a separate game. You could play it. I remember buying it back in the day. I never played it, but I read the rules, and it was actually really good. I would have loved to actually get a chance to play it, because it's just over the top kind of game, which is what it is in the book. Like I said, 3,000 copies for issue #1. I'm always on the lookout for one. I'd love to have an issue #1, but for $20, which is the cost, if you go to kenzico.com, which is their website, you can buy one of these facsimiles and get a chance to read the original story. And I think it's worth it if you like board games, or if you like Dungeons and Dragons and it's been a part of your life since you were a kid, like it has been for me. It's really enjoyable, and you really laugh at those inside jokes.
Have you ever seen a #1?
I have not. I have never seen one in person.
Me neither.
It's a rare book. I'm assuming people didn't take care of it, so maybe it's even rarer than the 3,000 book print run makes it seem. But yeah, I have never, ever in any show seen a copy of this book.
Me neither. That's crazy. Wow, good one. Mine is just like underrated, not because of value or anything, just good old fashioned slam bam Marvel superhero action. If you're looking for it, it is Marvel 2-in-1 number 53 from 1979. Yes, it's the Thing, but more importantly, it's Quasar. Yeah. This has an early look at Quasar, who later becomes a key cosmic player for Marvel. He's still in his Marvel Boy costume here. Aw. But this is the beginning of Project Pegasus. Now, I read Marvel 2-in-1 very regularly when I was a kid, and it was, I liked the Thing. Did not like the Thing in the Fantastic Four movie we just saw. This is the Thing. Sense of humor, always getting into a knockdown, drag out fight, has a lot of heart. But Marvel 2-in-1 was always like, a single issue from a different creative team over and over again. And again, it was like, we got to get this book out. With this issue, Mark Grunwald and Ralph Macchio joined as writers, along with John Byrne and George Perez, drawing the Project Pegasus saga, gave this book kind of a purpose and a regular creative team, which really took it up several notches. And it is overshadowed by bigger Marvel series from the 70s. But you get some strong storytelling here and early development for Quasar, very affordable price compared to some key issues around the same time. And, you got Byrne in here, classic Byrne, high grade raw, about $8 if you want to get into this. You get the return of Wondar, resolving a dangling plot line from the very early days of Marvel 2-in-1, where he adopted this kind of a Superman stand-in. Do you know, have you ever read about Wondar?
No.
Okay. Wondar was a Man-Thing character, was in Man-Thing from Steve Gerber. It was, okay, Superman's parents put a baby in a rocket and sent it to Earth.
Right.
In this case, the rocket lands, but the baby grew up. It took so long to get here. So he comes out and he's an adult with the strength of Superman, but he has the mind of a 3-year-old, a toddler. So this kind of resolves all of that. But it's just great old fashioned. I don't want to say old fashioned because it doesn't read old fashioned. You guys have never read the Project Pegasus saga from Marvel 2-in-1. You owe it to yourselves. I believe it's been the trade paperback has been in and out of print here and there. It was one of the very earliest Marvel trade paperbacks that they did in the 80s. So that tells you what they thought of it in terms of Marvel history. So highest possible recommendation, Marvel 2-in-1 53.
Oh, awesome. I love me a good Byrne and the Fantastic Four. That's awesome.
And George Perez.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
They got some heavy hitters on this book. Mm-hmm. Oh, Richard, I'm glad to be home. I'm glad to be back to normal.
Yeah, me too. It was stressful, not stressful. It was a long weekend, lots of stuff to do.
Yeah, but we'll be back for members on Thursday. We will see you then. Everyone else, we will catch you next Monday. All right.
All right, everybody, stay safe.